Getting lost. Now looking back, that was the closest I had ever come to dying. In the second year of junior high school, my family traveled to the west coast of the United States with my friend's family. It was undeniable that renting a car over there had added freedom and relaxation to our trip, but we had to plan the schedule of our trip. This also means that we needed to take more risks. One day, we planned to go to our booked hotel to rest after visiting Yosemite National Park, and everything seemed to go according to our plan perfectly. However, sometimes the plan cannot keep up with the changes. The turning point of the wonderful trip happened during asking the way to the red entrance between us and the local staff near Yosemite National Park. 7 years ago, when we went to the United States, the GPS signal was not as good as it is now, and the coverage area was not wide as now, but it was worse. Sometimes the map was not intuitive or informative enough, so we'll occasionally go on the wrong road. There was also a problem with the navigator that day, and we could not find the exact position in the forest near the national park. At this moment, we ran into a place where it seemed to be an entrance. I got off the car and asked the staff and was told that we were on the wrong path and we had to drive in the opposite direction. Therefore, we had to drive away and rush the rail entrance before sunset. I didn't know what happened before dark because I fell asleep, but when I woke up, I was already on the edge of death. To be precise, when I woke up, I still didn't know what things were going, because I was awakened by the sudden stop of the car and the shots of my father. The sharp breaking sound in the dark night suddenly sounded in the silent forest, creating a strange and terrifying atmosphere. "What's wrong?" asked my father. "Where are we? Are we almost there?" The answer to me was a silence. The only sound I could hear was the sound of the car still running. The lights in the car would turn on with the sound of pop, which scared me. Then I looked out the window eagerly, trying to figure out where we were. But I saw nothing except some face reflected on the car window. I still seemed to be in a state of not being sober. In addition, my hair was a little messy because of sleeping and the shaking of the car. I couldn't see my look or expression clearly, so me reflected on the car window was like a devil hidden in the dark. This made me feel terrified. However, the fear of the unknown was greater than my fear of darkness at the time. In the horrible atmosphere, I didn't know where I was. I only knew that I was in a completely unfamiliar forest. I guessed that we should be not far from Yosemite National Park. After all, we were still in the forest. California is a bit cold in the winter, so under the urging of this fear, I felt that the temperature in the car had also dropped a lot. I couldn't help but wrap my coat tightly. I trembled in fear, like a prisoner about to go to the execution ground. The surroundings of the car were extremely quiet, and everyone in the car didn't know what to do. I could not hear anything but the sound of the car never turning off and the sound of our breathing. I took a deep breath and then opened my phone. I showed that it was almost midnight. Since my phone had no global service when I went abroad, it was always out of service. So I didn't care about the signal and didn't realize the dangerousness of our situation at the time. After a long time, my friend's father said, "The front is a cliff. Thank God we stopped here, or we'll die." His words were like a peal of thunder, making me fully awake at this time. So my brain started to think extremely fast at that moment, trying to figure out our situation. Where are we? Now going to Yosemite National Park? Or going to the hotel? Why is there a cliff? Am I dying? I was too frightened to move my body. Unfortunately, my ears were still working normally. I heard my and my friend's mother both woke up and turned on the GPS in the navigator and the mobile phone, respectively. I pray that the printer on the GPS could tell us where we were and whether we were safe, but God made a joke with us. There is no signal here, neither the navigator nor the mobile phone, I heard my mother say. I seemed to stop breathing at that moment. How could this happen? Why should I go through this? But I had to admit that we got lost there. The smell of the car was the smell of the leather that the car often has, mixed with the smell of the wet mud in the forest at night, which I guess was the car driving in the forest for a long time before we stopped. Fear was in the air. Some people said fear has a metallic taste, and I could feel it at the time. I suppose the metallic taste was a kind of bloody smell because of the fear that caused my throat to be dry. But I never want to try this taste again in my life. So, am I going to die at midnight in the forest in a foreign country? I thought silently, already wondering how to write a goodbye note. I was afraid of darkness, and even more afraid of all the creatures hidden in the darkness, especially in unfamiliar places. The most terrible thing was that we never knew where they would be, or when they would appear in the dark night. My father sighed. But we have to go, at least not stop in the front of this cliff anyhow. I heard the sound of my father shifting gears. The next second, he turned off the lights in the car for driving safety. We had plunged into darkness again. This time, my anxiety had far suppressed my fear of the unknown and darkness. The sound of wheels grabbing pebbles on the ground and the roar of the car's accelerators became the only sounds in the dark forest at night. No one had spoken anymore, but I knew that we were all waiting for a miracle. Maybe a goddess of luck appeared that night because we saw the light after driving the darkness for about 2 hours. I won't die. That was my first thought when I saw the light. However, I knew the light brought hope to us in the dark, but we still didn't know what kind of scene was hidden behind that light. Was it the true hope or how? So at that time, I didn't feel completely relaxed and happy, but still felt a little scared and nervous. There is an old Chinese saying that close to hometown is tender, which often means that people who have not returned home for a long time will feel timid and nervous when they get closer and closer to their hometown. At the time, I had a feeling very similar to this. I felt that closer we were to the light source, the more nervous I was. As the car slowly approached the location of the light, we discovered that it was the light of a campfire where a group of people was camping. I remembered they had 4 cars or so, including the pickup truck of the women who took us out later. Although I was in junior high school at the time, there was no problem with daily communication in English, and my English was better than my parents, so I had to be me to ask for help. We got lost in the forest. Can you help us? I trembled, as I had been extremely nervous and anxious for almost 2 hours in the dark night. But I still explained our situation to the people there clearly. I told them about our trip to the Yosemite National Park, especially the experience of getting lost in the forest. They were astonished by our story. Then, to our surprise, they not only expressed their willingness to help us, but also said that we did not have to live in such a hurry, and then took the initiative to show us around their camp and invited us to either bake the bread and meat. At that time, we actually had food to eat that night, but no one could resist not eating in front of the baked delicacy and the hospitality of others. That was also the first time I saw an RV, which was one of the 4 cars. But because I talked too much about our experiences during the trip and focused on eating food, I forgot to ask them why they drove an RV instead of other cars. Later, I remembered one of the camping people said that they needed to cook, bath, sleep, etc. So I guess the driving the RV would make these things more convenient. In a completely unfamiliar environment, it was very fortunate for someone to take care of us so kindly and patiently. They were just like angels to us. After receiving warm hospitality, one of the women with a blue cotton coat drove us to the national highway in her pickup truck. I guess that she drove her car for two reasons. On one hand, it was still at night when we met, and it was still dark, so we could not accurately find the highway even if they pointed out the right way for us. On the other hand, she had to return to camp after she seen tested the highway. Based on this, she drove in front of us with her two wolfhounds to lead us away. When we found the right route, we stopped together on the side of the road. Only then did I have the opportunity to exchange my email with her. To express my gratitude to them, I sent her an email after we wrapped at the hotel. In the email, I told her that if they want to go to Beijing one day, she can send me messages and I am willing to be their guide. Although I have changed my cell phone right now, the text messages have always been kept by me. Thanks for their help. Let me live longer. The help from strangers have warmed me for almost 7 years. So every time I see someone who needs help, I will try my best to help them. Passing the kindness on.